Hey friends, welcome back to Attacking Third. Let's jump into it. Mary Earps dropped an autobiography titled All In Football Life and Learning to Be Unapologetically Me. Love that title. Set to be released on November 6th in 2 days. And she is already making massive headlines with little snippets that have come out about the book, as well as her promotion on it. And there are a lot of thoughts. Of course, we know the British media is absolutely intense and can kind of crucify players and those that speak out and share their stories. And in my opinion, especially as a woman who has created a legacy and trailblazed for the Lionesses and for women's football and goalkeeper union, shout out. Think of some of the things that she's done. She pressured Nike to sell goalkeeper jerseys. They sold out within 5 minutes following the World Cup. She led the Lionesses to their first Euro. She's been a trailblazer for goalkeepers, for speaking up, for being authentically herself. And she wrote this book. And I wanted to talk to you both about the challenges of being a female footballer, let alone just a woman in this world, and sharing your legacy, trying to preserve it, but also telling your truth and the fine line that you have to follow in order for that to not get lost. And sadly, I think it is getting lost with the headlines that are catching from her book that hasn't even been released yet. And Christine, I know that you have a lot of thoughts on this.
Yeah, I really, really do. This is not a new genre of footballers publishing autobiographies and sort of uh, taking control of their own narrative, right? Men have done it so often. We've had Zlatan, we have Roy Keane, Patrice Evra, Wayne Rooney, Gigi Buffon. There's been so many, including but not limited to like some of the more comical ones, which are just like jarring, like Gattuso or Pirlo talking about Gattuso stabbing him with a fork in the dining hall. Like there's been so many like shock and awe moments in the men's game, but when we look at the framing of everything, and this is again to your point, Dee, that the book isn't even out yet. This is just based on the little snippets that have been essentially marketed to get people interested in the autobiography. We see already this like criticism and combativeness where when men do this, it's owning their own narrative, but it's looking at Mary Earps right now with this state of defiance, like it's a betrayal, a divisiveness, that she's emotional, that this isn't just candor and vulnerability, it's her being disruptive, oversharing, when it's nothing more or less than what we've seen before. And I have great issue with that. And then on top of that, there's the complication of the women's football space overall, um, feeling like being heaped upon her shoulders. And again, this is her owning her own narrative. It's this shift where it's perceived like she somehow needs to bear the burden of moving women's football culturally forward. Like this is, and she's betrayed everyone, including everyone that she's supposed to be loyal to, that you shouldn't speak your honest truth because that could possibly draw more criticism and weaponize things against women's football. It's crazy to me, and I got like so angry about it because again, we don't even have the full context
Yeah,
of what she's written yet. We
that
have
part.
snippets and people have dove headfirst onto this, which I welcome the time and opportunity to read her book when it comes out on the 6th. But right now I just feel like it's a woman footballer who's come forward to speak honestly, openly about her experience as a footballer in her own context. And that's all that we can take from it from this point.
Yeah, completely agree. I mean, said perfectly in that regard. And keep in mind again, like you already said, this is her experience, right? This is what we ask about football players. We want to know about them, we know about their lives, and then immediately, if we take it out of context or don't know, then it's taken as a negative, right? And it reminds me, this isn't apples to apples, but even just with like Laura Harvey's Chat GPT recently, the entire context of that was authenticity and how she was growing as a coach. And also just asked, hey, what formation? It just was a catalyst for her to dive into playing a different formation and then dive into those tactics without ChatGPT knowing her personnel or that she has available or even how to play that, right? And I just was like, I just sat back and it made me laugh that it was taken even in Europe to be like, okay, like LOL so essentially. Extreme. And I'm like, and again, this isn't apples to apples and not getting away from Earps, but it feels very similar. Like if this is a male coach, then I'm like, would that even have been a news? Or would we have just been talking about how so many clubs and organizations, right? They'd been like, you're genius. Or we've just been like, oh, so many clubs and organizations are using AI, and it's something that hasn't really been talked about or delved into. And yet this is the headline, right? And so that's how I feel about this Earp situation as well. It's just like, okay, of course we're going to take these, snippets to garner headlines. And that's the point, to generate buying of the book. But at the same time, it's just like, so take a deep breath, everybody. This is somebody sharing their experience that has had such a history of driving this sport forward, and it's important.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's incredibly
I
important.
think. Yeah, Dee.
No, I completely agree. I think both of you said it so well, and it's frustrating that, we ask athletes, we ask women especially to share their stories, share their journeys, especially, this is something I'm sure my younger self would have loved to read and see and feel seen and heard and understand what the stakes are, what happens, what goes on behind the doors, what's your mental journey with all of this. And, watching her especially talk to Leanne Sanderson on her podcast, and just how you could see and hear the emotion from her, that it's just been distorted and this isn't what she wanted it to be. But I think this lends to her legacy in a way. I think after this book comes out and we see the full picture, the full story, she's going to be trailblazing once again. And it sucks that it had to be via this. But I mean, some of the difficulties that come from excelling in your career, especially as a goalkeeper, being a starter, winning the Euros, BBC Player of the Year, getting all of these awards, going to Windsor Palace and getting an MBE from Prince William. Like, these are iconic things that she's done. People want to hear this. And especially amidst all of this, getting dropped from your position as the number one goalkeeper, leaving your club team you've been with for 5+ years. It's a lot of change. And I think it's so disappointing that this is what's getting lost, but I do think that she's going to persevere. And when this book comes out, the important parts are going to be main focus.
Yeah, I think that in terms of her legacy, right? She's a world best keeper, period, end of story. And I don't think that we'd be having the question about her legacy if she were a male footballer, because their legacies somehow seem unshatterable. There isn't a vulnerability there, where here, it becomes like, how deep are her criticisms? But also, there's another problem here that I find pervasive, and it's that as women footballers, you should be able to openly criticize and not feel like you're betraying your teammates, the leagues, and the underpinnings, because a lot of the problems that have been widespread through women's football have been because people haven't spoken up for fear, because there's a fragility there. What we do need is more people like her, of her ilk and of her stature, talking out about their experiences. Now, is that representative of a universal? No. But will it peek a little bit more light onto things that could be happening, that could be rectified in some way, shape, or form? Absolutely. And I think there needs to be a certain acknowledgement of what she's done for herself that could inevitably prove to be a good more broadly. And yeah, she is unique in that she's currently still an active footballer for a large club in the pro league. I think that would be the only place that she really deviates from some of the other autobiographies, is that they've built it on the back of their retirements.
Yeah, Completely agree. Lori, you too?
Yeah. Well said, Cupo.